Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about an yearly paper. It's a paper 2 and it is May June 2022 and the variant is 22. Okay, so the question number 1 says choose from the following compounds to answer the questions. State which compound is purple in color. We only studied one thing that is purple in color, and that is potassium manganate, whose color changes purple to colorless. It's an oxidizing agent. So the answer would be KMNO4. Which of these following compounds react with aqueous sodium sulfate to form a white precipitate? Since it's a sulfate, so only three things react to form insoluble precipitates of sulfates. There is calcium sulfate, there is barium sulfate, or there is lead sulfate. So we have to check out the options. Which one is it? Do we have any of it? We have barium nitrate, so obviously barium hai hamare paas. So barium will react with sodium sulfate to form barium sulfate. So here you will have to write barium nitrate. Okay, so let's look at the question number C. Dash reacts with aqueous chlorine to give a brown solution. Okay, brown solution से आपको याद आना चाहिए there is something related to iodine. Iodines जो होते हैं they are usually brown. So which of these following will react with chlorine to give a brown solution? So Ki will react with chlorine, and since chlorine is more reactive than iodine, chlorine will displace iodine, and you will have iodine, aqueous iodine will be formed, which is brown in color. So try to, whenever you read a part, do not go to the options immediately. Try to think about it first. Okay, do not randomly go to it. For example, if they say purple in color, just rewind in your head that what exactly is purple in color. It makes it easier for you to select the options, and it will take less time. So I was supposed to write what here? I was supposed to write Ki here. So dash is prepared using a precipitation reaction. Precipitation reaction is used to prepare insoluble salts. So insoluble salts का option यहाँ पे क्या है? Do we have an insoluble salt? Yes, we have silver chloride. Silver chloride is an insoluble salt. So you will write AgCl here. Which of the following contains an anion with a charge of -3? Okay, let's look at the charge of -3. Immediately, -3 charge, you should remember nitrogen and phosphorus because they are most common group 5 elements that appear in papers very repeatedly. अच्छा तो नाइट्रोजन और फास्फोरस में से कुछ है यहाँ पे देख look at it Na3N. It has a -3 charge obviously. That's why sodium has 3 over here. So you will write Na3N. Na3N. Which of the following is used to test for a reducing agent? You are testing for a reducing agent, then you will add an oxidizing agent, and then you will have to repeat your answer. That will be KMNO4. KMNO4 is an oxidizing agent. Okay, in question number 2, the table shows some information about elements in group 6. State the electronic configuration of sulfur. So sulfur is 3216. It has 16 electrons. So electronic configuration would be 2, 8, and 6. Now predict the density of polonium. Now how would you predict the density? Okay, you want to find out this blank. So let's have to check the previous trend. That what is the difference between 4.8 and 6.3? I think it would be around 1.5. Yes. So 4.8 से 6.3 तक 1.5 add over. So just add 1.5 here. That's the safest way of doing it. Okay, so you add 1.5 and then you'll have 7.8. So just write 7.8 to it. So whenever these kind of questions appear, just make sure that you follow the previous trend. Okay, but if there is a blank in the middle, for example, if there is a value, there is a top value and then there's a bottom value, and then there's a blank in the middle, then you take the midpoint of the above value and the below value. We'll do more questions, obviously more papers, उसमें इस तरह के questions आएंगे तो we'll discuss. Sulfur has a boiling point of 445 degrees Celsius. Okay, predict the physical state of sulfur at 200. Since it boils at 445, so less than 445 ये at least liquid तो होगा. it also has a melting point. So sulfur has a melting point of minus of 130. So at 113 it will melt. So at 200 it will stay liquid. Okay. Why? Because because its boiling point its boiling point is greater, because its boiling point is greater than 200, and melting point melting point is less than 200. Okay, unfortunately you have to get both of these answers correct to get a 1 mark. Like you'll have to write the physical state correctly, and also you'll have to explain it properly to get 1 mark. Okay, so the D part says that you have to draw a dot and cross diagram for a molecule of oxygen. He was kind enough to give you the formula for it, so it makes it easier. O2. So there is O mounted on another O. Start drawing dot and cross diagram like this. First mount all these circles. Now oxygen belongs to group 6. Okay, so it's going to share 2 electrons. So it share 2 electrons. Both of them share 2 electrons, and 4 electrons will remain unbonded. 4 electrons will remain unbonded. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, both the oxygens have complete outermost shells now. Explain in terms of structure and bonding why oxygen has a low melting point. Whenever low melting point comes up, it is 90% because of weak intermolecular forces. So write that oxygen has weak intermolecular forces. Since it's a covalent molecule, so covalent simple molecules have weak intermolecular forces of attraction, which are easy to overcome. Okay, so question number 2, E part. Selenium is a non-metal. Deduce the formula of selenium 4 oxide. Selenium 4 means Se has a +4 charge and O has a -2 charge. So this will become Se Se4O2 बनता है ना, originally Se2O4 बनता है ना, तो इसको simplify करते हैं, it will become SeO2, pretty much like silicon 4 oxide. So basically he has given you this question in reference to silicon 4 oxide, that you know how silicon 4 oxide operate in terms of its formulas. Silicon is, let's say, +4, O is -2, so its formula is actually SiO2, because you simplify it, right? Each silicon will have 2 oxygen atoms, so each selenium will also have 2 oxygen atoms. You will write SeO. Now a small sample of selenium 4 oxide, it's a non-metal, so it's a non-metal oxide. It is dissolved in water. So when non-metal oxides are dissolved in water, acidic solutions are formed. Right? Non-metal oxides are acidic. 2 drops of universal indicator are added. Predict the color of the universal indicator in the solution. You should know that universal indicator in the acid medium from 7 to 14, it changes from yellow to orange to maximum red. Like the strongest acid will have the red color. So you can actually write any acid, any color in it, because इस medium में हमें ये तो नहीं पता कि कितना strong ये acid है, but you can write yellow, you can write orange, or you can write red. Let's write orange. It's in the middle. Okay, because यहाँ पे को बताना पड़ेगा, because non-metal oxides are acidic. Non-metal oxides are acidic. That's why when you added universal indicator, are acidic. Okay. That's why when you added universal indicator to the solution, it shows the color in the acidic medium. Okay, next question is to calculate the volume, and you're given grams of oxygen. Okay, give your answer to 2 significant figures. So we'll have to solve it. So again, आपको moles का question है. The first thing that you need to do is to calculate moles from the given information. You have mass of oxygen, just calculate the moles of oxygen. That would be 30.2 divided by, do not do the mistake, do not make the error of just taking one atom. Okay, whenever you are taking diatomic gases, oxygen, nitrogen, in these formulas, you will also have to take two atoms. Okay, so it will be 32. So 30.2 divided by 32 would be 0.9437. Okay, you got moles of oxygen. You need to calculate volume. Formula we have is moles is equal to volume over 24. So volume will be equal to moles multiplied by 24. So let's calculate volume here. 0.9437 multiplied by 24. The answer would be 22.65 here. But he asked you to give your answer to two significant figures. So 5, 6. So you'll have to write 20. It's greater than 5. So 2 will turn into 22 will turn into 23. I hope you have a good idea of significant figures, because they keep on asking you to write moles, questions related to moles. They will expect you to write answers in some significant figures. Okay, they can give you that. So that is just 1 mark out of it. If you don't know it, तो आपका 1 mark ऐसे ही चला जाएगा. So please be very careful. Okay, get a good handle on the significant figures. Okay, so the diagram shows some reactions of butanoic acid. Okay, so this is the butanoic acid. This is the butanoic acid. And butanoic acid is reacting with magnesium and the gas is being formed. So when metals react with acids, then hydrogen gas is formed. So A would be hydrogen, right? And when you're reacting acid with a metal, obviously a salt is formed. And when you react carboxylic acid, right, how does the salt form? Magnesium or metal hit the negative ion of the acid. What is the negative ion of the acid? As far as carboxylic acids are concerned, if I write ethanoic acid, so the last hydrogen, except for the last hydrogen, all the remaining part is negative ion. It has a -1 charge. Whether it's ethanoic acid or you are talking about propanoic acid, you just remove this hydrogen and the remaining ion is the negative ion and it has a -1 charge. So magnesium will attack the negative ion of the acid, which would be in this whole body, right? And it will have a -1 charge. So since magnesium has a +2 charge and this has a -1 charge, so it will get multiplied by 2. So, okay, you just have to write the name, by the way. Okay, so you should know that when you remove hydrogen from a carboxylic acid, the oic acid becomes O8. Like ethanoic becomes ethanoate, propanoic becomes propanoate, and similarly here butanoic will become butanoate. So how would you write the formula? You will write magnesium butanoate, right? So what is C? Okay, when acids are reacting with metal carbonates, which gas is released? Carbon dioxide. Whenever there's a carbonate involved now, and you're reacting it with an acid, 99% is going to be carbon dioxide. So the C would be called carbon dioxide. And if you talk about D, what exactly is D? Okay, so he reacted butanoic acid with ethanol. So an ester will be formed, right? So a liquid D and organic liquid E is formed. Organic liquid has to be the ester and liquid D would be what? Water. Because we know that when carboxylic acid react with alcohols, they form esters and water. The liquid D would be water and the organic liquid has to be ester. Now he'll expect you to draw the structure. Yes, he's expecting you to draw the structure of E. You should have a really good handle on esters. It's going to come in exams. He's not going to skip that. Esters are a must. Esters are a must. They come in almost every exam. Okay, so basically you're reacting butanoic acid with ethanol. So let's condense the structure. So we have C3H7COOH is the butanoic acid, and we have ethanol, that is C2H5OH, right? So when they react, this OH and this H reacts to form water, and the remaining part of alcohol, which is C2H5O, which is this part, this attaches to this with oxygen side पहले आ जाती है बस C3H7 CO. This is the carboxylic acid remaining because यहाँ से OH किया और यहाँ से H किया, water बन गया, ठीक है. And this is the carboxylic part remaining और यहाँ पे इसके आगे आके alcohol का remaining part लग जाएगा. O side first, okay? So O will come first and then C2H5. Now you'll have to draw the structure of this and the name. Okay, so this is called ethyl and this is hydrogen removed from butanoic acid. This is called butanoate. So this will be called ethyl butanoate. And now you'll also have to draw the structure for this. Since you have written the molecular formula for this, the structure is just peanuts. So C3, H बाद में लगाएंगे, then you have COO. COO means carbon double bonded to oxygen, then single bonded to oxygen. And then you have C2 again. Now just draw hydrogens. You will have to write hydrogens. I'm just drawing bonds. I just hate writing hydrogens because it's very tedious. A levels में आ तो जल्दी से तुम लोग, and then you will know a thing called skeletal formula and just gets very easy to write these formulas. Anyway, okay, state what is meant by the term weak in weak acids. I hope ये सबको आता होगा. Weak का मतलब होता है that it does not, it partially ionizes. Weak means that it is partially ionized या partially dissociated. Dissociate is the more hip word. He's using more often in water कर ले यहाँ पे. He's using dissociation or dissociate a lot in marking schemes nowadays. So let's go with dissociate. Okay, so question number 4. This is our one of our lottery questions जो कि atomic structure से आता है. You cannot commit the crime of doing this wrong because these are free marks. Especially those who are just struggling to just get any. This question is like elixir for you. ये तुम लोगों के लिए जामे हयात है भाई. So let's start. State the nucleon number for this. Nucleon number is atomic mass. Atomic mass is the bigger value, that is 79. State the number of electrons in this. So we have 35 electrons originally and it has gained 1 electron. That's why it has a -1 charge. So electrons would be 36. Write the full symbol for one another isotope of calcium. Okay. Isotope banana. So just you need to change the value of atomic mass. Just add 1. Okay. Describe how calcium ion is formed from a calcium atom. Oh, that's so difficult. No offense. The +2 means it has lost 2 electrons, right? So you just have to write that calcium atom. Do not write just lose 2 electrons. Okay, just write the full sentence. Calcium loses 2 electrons. That side has a +2 charge. Many of you think, many students actually make the mistake that +2 means 2 electrons are gained. Nahi bhai, electrons are negative. They're like negative people in your life. When they leave your life becomes positive. So explain why calcium bromide conducts electricity when molten but not when solid. And he has been kind enough to tell you that calcium bromide is an ionic compound. And you should know that ionic compounds conduct electricity in molten form but not when in solid, because ionic compounds have free ions in molten form. Okay? So you'll have to address it both ways. That calcium bromide, there has to be a software when I speak and my handwriting appears. So this is so convenient. So calcium bromide has free ions in molten state. But has fixed ions in solid state. So you have to address both the states here. They predict two other physical properties of calcium bromide. It's an ionic compound. Ionic compounds have high melting and boiling points. High melting and boiling points. And the other property is they are brittle. Ionic compounds are brittle, or you can also say that they dissolve in water. Dissolve in water or soluble in water. Okay guys, so question number 5. Ethanol is manufactured by reaction between ethene and steam. The conditions used are 300 degrees Celsius, high pressure and phosphoric acid catalyst. Fair enough. So the forward reaction is exothermic. Exothermic means heat is released, so automatically just write heat in the products for your convenience. So, okay, predict what happens to the amount of ethanol. This is ethanol. In the equilibrium mixture, if the temperature is decreased and the pressure remains constant. So if temperature is decreased, so heat on the product side is decreased. So the equilibrium will move to the right. You should know that wherever, देखो, सिंपल सा प्रिंसिपल याद रखो इक्विलिब्रियम में, जहां जिस तरफ कोई चीज कम हो रही होगी उस तरफ जाएगा इक्विलिब्रियम, और जहां पे कोई चीज इंक्रीज हो रही होगी उससे दूर जाएगा इक्विलिब्रियम. If heat is being decreased on the right side, equilibrium will go to the right to make up for that extra heat, to make up the extra heat, right? And if the heat is being increased on the product side, equilibrium will move towards the reactant side, towards the left, to use up that extra heat. Okay, so anyway, you can go to exothermic and endothermic reactions, reversible reactions video if you don't have a sound understanding of this. Anyway, so he's asking you what happens with the amount of ethanol. Since it's going to the right, so amount of ethanol would increase. So you would write amount of ethanol So explanation would be that equilibrium moves to the right. The right. You can say to release more heat, because heat वहाँ पे कम हो गई है, to release more heat. But you can also say that because it is favoring the exothermic side. Right? Okay. So predict what happens with the amount of ethanol in the equilibrium mixture if the pressure is decreased. So when you decrease pressure, equilibrium moves to the side with more gas moles. If you increase the pressure, equilibrium will move to the side with less gas moles. If you decrease the pressure, equilibrium will move to the side with more gas moles. So there is, how would you calculate gas moles? The coefficients are the moles. So 1, 1, 1. So left there are 2 gas moles, 1 plus 1, and on the right there are 1 gas mole. So by decreasing pressure, what would happen to the amount of ethanol? So since the equilibrium will move to the left, okay, so amount of ethanol would automatically decrease. So less ethanol will be formed. Less ethanol will be formed. Explanation would be because equilibrium moves to the left. Equilibrium moves to the left as there are more gas moles on the left side. Okay. Okay, so this next part is, oh, something happened here. Anyway, we can still look at it. Describe the manufacture of ethanol by fermentation of glucose. Include the equation and the essential conditions for this fermentation. It's a 3-mark question. So, first of all, just write the equation that you take glucose and carbon dioxide and ethanol is formed, C2H5OH. Just write the balanced equation for this. Now it is balanced. This is H5. Now it is balanced. So, okay. So you can say that make a sentence. Glucose is fermented in the presence of in the presence of yeast in the presence of yeast at 20 to 40 degrees Celsius भी होता है, at 15 to 45 degrees Celsius भी है. Presence of yeast at 15 to 45 degrees Celsius. It's a 3-mark question and this would be enough. And if it's a 4-mark question, you can also mention that how would you separate it. Okay, that this ethanol has to be distilled to get it out of the solution. And you can also write in the absence of oxygen if this is a 4-mark question. For 3-mark question, this is enough. Yes, you wrote the chemical equation, the balanced one, and then you talked about the catalyst, which is yeast, and the temperature. And this is going to be enough for this question. Okay, so a sample of an alloy containing aluminum and copper is added to sulfuric acid. Only the aluminum reacts with sulfuric acid. You should know that copper does not react, obviously, because copper is below hydrogen in the reactivity series, so it does not react with acids. So construct the ionic equation with the state symbols for the reaction of aluminum with sulfuric acid. So you need to write the ionic equation. First, you need to write the actual equation, reaction of aluminum with sulfuric acid H2SO4, and it will form salt and hydrogen. So salt will be Al2SO4 and hydrogen. We'll have to balance this. 3SO4s, 2 Al, and how many hydrogens? We have 6, and 3 2s are 6 hydrogens. So we know that acids are aqueous, and we know that aluminum sulfate is also aqueous. For ionic equations, you need to break down the aqueous solutions. So the sulfates are going to cancel each other out, but the hydrogen ions are going to remain, and aluminum ions are going to remain. So ionic equation would be 2 aluminum plus 3 2s are 6 hydrogen atoms are there, so this will be 6 hydrogen ions, but 6 will come in the coefficient. For ions, the number of ions is always mentioned in the coefficient. There are 2 aluminum atoms, so 2 aluminum ions. Sulfate ions cancel each other out because they are spectator ions. They're just spectating in the reaction. They're not changing into anything. And you have 3 hydrogen plus 3 hydrogen. And since you also have to write state symbols, we know aluminum is a solid, and ions are always aqueous. So aluminum ion is also aqueous, and hydrogen is a gas. Next is describe the chemical test for aluminum ions. You can do it with ammonia. You can do it with sodium hydroxide. It's your call. I'm doing sodium hydroxide. Add sodium hydroxide. Add aqueous sodium hydroxide to be more precise. Add aqueous sodium hydroxide, and white precipitate is formed. White precipitate. You can also add PPT. White precipitate is formed, which is soluble in excess, which dissolve in excess, Okay. Okay, so the next is the aqueous aluminum sulfate formed is crystallized to make hydrated aluminum sulfate. Okay, the relative formula mass of hydrated aluminum sulfate is 666. Okay, its total mass is 666. And you need to calculate the value of X. This is a simplification question. So the atomic mass of aluminum is 27 multiplied by 2 plus SO4 is 32 plus 16 into 4, 64. And this is taken part 3 dot X, and water's atomic mass, water's molecular mass will be 18, 2 hydrogens and 16 is oxygens. This will be 18x कर लें to be more precise. 18x would be better. And plus करो इसको, because dot का मतलब होता है plus when you're calculating molecular mass, and this overall mass is equal to 666. This would be 54, and this would be 96 multiplied by 3. 96 multiplied by 3 would be 270, and 288. 288 plus 18x is equal to 666. I will just simplify 666 minus, this is 342. 342 divided by 18, and x will be equal to 18. Okay, state what is meant by the term alloy. Alloy is a mixture of a metal. It is a mixture. Do not write mixture of metals because carbon भी डालते हैं हम iron के अंदर, तो it's a mixture of metal with another element. Mixture of metal with another element. Okay, ji. Moving to question number 7. This is from air and water, I think most of it. Okay. So, state one environmental problem caused by producing carbon dioxide as an atmospheric pollutant. Obviously, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas and it causes global warming. It causes global warming. It causes greenhouse effect. You can write any of that. You can also write climate change. State one environmental problem caused by producing sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide both cause acid rain. They cause acid rain. Okay. So sulfur dioxide produced at power stations can be removed by a process called flue gas desulfurization. You should know this, okay? That sulfur dioxide produced at power stations, उसको remove करते हैं by adding calcium carbonate. It reacts with sulfur dioxide, form a solid, a salt, and carbon dioxide is released. The reaction needs to be fast to remove as much sulfur dioxide as possible. Explain using ideas about particles like calcium carbonate needs to be powdered instead of a single solid lump. We know that powdered stuff has greater surface area than lumps. So greater surface area means greater rate of reaction. He just said that you need the reaction to be fast. So calcium carbonate needs to be a powder. Why? Because powdered calcium carbonate has greater surface area. Right? The greater, okay? No, not great. Okay? Use the term which is relative, okay? So greater calcium carbonate has greater surface area. And since it has greater surface area, so it will have more collisions leading to more successful collisions and therefore greater rate okay. Explain using ideas about particles why decreasing temperature decreases the rate of reaction between calcium carbonate and sulfur dioxide. When you decrease temperature, it's a 2-mark question. He told you that decreasing temperature decreases rate, so do not write that rate decreases. आपको particles में बताना है, so you will have to mention kinetic energy and effective collisions, both of them. So you will say that particles temperature से decrease करने का बता दिया, तो let's start from there. That particles lose kinetic energy or particles have less kinetic energy. And therefore less or बेहतर होगा fewer, and therefore fewer effective collisions. ठीक है? Okay. Sulfur dioxide reacts with oxygen as shown. Okay. Explain why sulfur dioxide is oxidized in this reaction. Simple C explanation here is it is gaining oxygen. So you can simply write sulfur dioxide gains oxygen. Do not write just gains oxygen, just write the full sentence, please. Sulfur dioxide gains oxygen. Even when you are doing past paper practice, write full sentences. Do not think that you are going to improvise in paper because that's going to take more time. So let's practice it. Write full sentences. Okay, explain using ideas about bond making and bond breaking why the reaction is exothermic. So you will write because energy released, energy released. Kindly ignore the noises outside because I'm recording this at school. Energy released during bond formation, energy released during bond formation is greater than energy absorbed, is greater than energy absorbed during bond breaking, during bond breaking. So you have to write, आपको दो aspect cover करने हैं इसमें, that energy release is greater than energy absorbed, and you have to link the energy released with bond formation and energy absorbed with bond breaking. So this sentence, if you just memorize it, this covers all of it. Explain why addition of catalyst increases the rate of reaction. It lowers the activation energy. It lowers the activation energy, and if it is a 2-mark question, you will also write it lowers the activation energy by providing an alternate pathway. If it's a 2-mark question, then you have to write that. For 1-mark question, it just activation energy is good enough. It lowers the activation energy. Okay, so zinc is a metal. Coating iron with zinc prevent iron from rusting. Explain how a coating of zinc prevent iron from rusting when the coating is scratched. So we basically coat zinc on iron because zinc is more reactive. Na? So when the coating is scratched, even when the coating is scratched, since zinc is more reactive than iron, so it will react in preference to iron. So you'll have to write that zinc is more reactive than iron. Just ignore my writing as well. I hope it's legible. You can read it. Zinc is more reactive than iron. Okay, so it will react, or you can also say oxidize because oxidize होते हैं उसमें metals ने oxidize होना होता है, electrons lose करते हैं. So it will react in preference to iron, or it will react instead of iron. You can write both the terms, in preference to iron. Okay, zinc has metallic bonding. Describe with the aid of label diagram the metallic bonding in solid zinc. Okay, you'll have to draw closely packed electrons and positive ions. So let's draw them up close. Just draw electrons along with them like this. Okay. Positive ions. They have to be of the same size. Electrons, positive ions, electrons. Now just make sure that you show them closely packed, okay? And electrons, just adjust electrons. You don't have to write E. You can also draw small circles there, and then tell them that these are positive ions and these are delocalized electrons. I'm trying to draw them. Some are overlapping, but you won't overlap. Okay. Electrons and positive ions. Okay. Just draw electrons. Couple of electrons here as well. So then you label that these are metal ions or positive ions. Write positive ions. Okay. And these are delocalized electrons. Delocalized electrons. So you'll have to describe it as well. So what is metallic bonding? Metallic bonding is, just remember, metallic bonding is electrostatic force of attraction. Up till here, the definition of actually ionic bond and metallic bond is the same. Both are electrostatic forces of attraction. But in metallic bonding, the force of attraction is between positive ions, between positive ions and delocalized electrons. But if you talk about ionic bond, the electrostatic force of attraction is between positive ion and negative ion. So that is the difference. Explain why zinc is a good conductor of electricity. Do not write because free electrons. Okay? Please write that zinc has free electrons. Write the full sentence, please. आपका अच्छा खासा आता कॉन्सेप्ट गलत हो जाएगा. Okay. At the cathode, zinc ions are changed into zinc atoms. At anode, hydroxide ions are changed into oxygen molecules. Write the ionic equations. Do not get thrown off with the ionic equations, the same equation that we write with electrons. So zinc ions are changing into zinc atoms. So zinc ions are changing into zinc atoms. So since they're gaining electrons, gain is always on the left side. Gain is left, loss is right. And at anode, you just have to memorize this equation. Whenever a hydroxide ion goes to the anode, there is oxygen that is formed. There are 2 water molecules, and then there are 4 electrons. Okay, just memorize this equation and it will be easier for you. Show by calculation that hydrochloric acid is in excess in this reaction. So okay, so for excess and limiting, you just have to calculate the moles first, whichever moles are given. You have mass of zinc, so you can calculate the moles of zinc. That will be 2.34 divided by zinc atomic mass. I'll have to check. Just give me a moment. 65, and the answer is 0.036 moles. And calculate the moles of HCl now. So you are given all the information for HCl. Whenever there is a limiting index S reactant question, you will be given enough information of both the reactants to calculate their moles. Okay, so 50 is the volume. You have to divide it by 1000 to convert it into decimeter cube to align with the units of concentration. So 50 by 1000 multiplied by 2 would be 0.1 mole. Okay, so these moles are called available moles. So we have to show by calculation that hydrochloric acid is in excess. So when will it be called in excess? It will be called in excess when its available moles are greater than the required moles. Only then HCl will be in excess if its available moles, which is 0.1, is greater than its required moles. Now we'll have to calculate the required moles. So how do we calculate it? We have zinc and HCl. We do it from the equation. So when there is 1 mole of zinc, there will be 2 moles of HCl, and if there are 0.036 moles of zinc, how many moles of HCl will be required? So you'll just cross multiply, and your answer will be X will be equal to 0.07, right? So you require 0.07 moles of HCl. And how much do you have? You have 0.1. So you have more moles than required. So you will write that HCl is in excess. So you'll have to write it, okay? You'll have to write a statement that HCl is in excess because its available moles, and write down the moles, which are 0.1, are greater than required moles. Which are 0.07. Okay, so draw the structures of 2 different alkanes with the molecular formula C for C, 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 C. Then you have C, 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 and यहाँ पे एक C. अब हाइड्रोजन आप लोगों ने खुद लगाने हैं बेटा जी, मैं नहीं लगा रहा ये, मैं बॉन्ड शो कर रहा हूँ, इसके ऊपर सब पे हाइड्रोजन लगाने, इसमें मैंने एक लगाया, इन सब पे भी हाइड्रोजन लगाने और आपके आइसोमर बन जाएंगे. State using the general formula of alkane the molecular formula of an alkane which has only 12 carbon atoms in its molecule. So the general formula is CnH2n plus 2. So you have to write the formula of alkane with 12 carbon atoms. So C12H26. So you will write C12H26. So आगे कह रहे हो many alkanes are separated from petroleum by fractional distillation. Describe fractional distillation of petroleum. So first of all, what do you do in fractional distillation? So petroleum, 3 marks na. There should be a counter in your head. Okay, I wrote 1 point and this is my 1 mark. In a distillation question, when you write that whatever liquid you are distilling that is heated, there you get 1 mark. And if it's fractional distillation, you will write petroleum is heated in a fractionating column. Okay, let's not write in the fractionating column because mostly it is heated and then entered into the fractionating column. Petroleum is heated. Okay. Petroleum is heated. And let's do it in a fractionating column. Okay. I think it would be fair. It would be okay. Petroleum is heated in the fractionating column. He just wants you to mention fractionating column. Heated in a fractionating column. Okay. So these are 2 marks. And then you have to mention the principle of fractional distillation, which is the difference in boiling point. So you can say that that separation of fractions depend on boiling points. And this would be enough. Or you can also say that the lighter or the low boiling liquids will vaporize from the top, and high boiling point liquids will be exited from the bottom. Okay. Butane reacts with chlorine to give several products. State the condition needed for the substitution reaction. It's ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light or UV light, or you can also say sunlight. Okay, one of these products contain this much carbon, this much hydrogen, and this much chlorine. Calculate the empirical formula and the molecular formula. Let's do it. Empirical formula: calcium, carbon, hydrogen, and we have chlorine. Now, carbon is 37.8%, hydrogen is 6.3%, chlorine is 55.9%. The first step is to divide it by atomic mass. Now, I just told you in the moles question that whenever you are taking the atomic mass of the mass of molecular mass of elemental gases, the diatomic gases, you have to take the mass of 2 atoms. But in empirical formula, you have to take the mass of 1 atom. Okay, whether it's diatomic or triatomic, you will, for empirical formula, you will take the atomic mass, not the molecular mass. So hydrogen will be 1 and chlorine would be 35.5. Only when you're using the moles formula, okay, you will take the mass of 2 atoms when you're talking about a diatomic molecule. So this would be your first thing, and let me just calculate it. This would come as 3.15. Not sure. Let me calculate it. Okay, so these will be the values, and from this you have to take the smallest value and divide that value with every other value. 1.55 is the smallest value. 1.55. So this will be coming as 2, almost 2, and this would be 3, 4, and this will be around 5, and this will be 1. So this is C2H5Cl. This will be your empirical formula. You can write it here. And you have to deduce the molecular formula for this as well. So here normally molecular formula के लिए we require molecular mass, but you can see the molecular mass is not given here, right? So what is given is that original compound was C4H10. तो 4 carbon atoms वाला original compound था, and this is only 2 carbon atoms. So you simply multiply this by 2. Simply multiply this by 2, you will get C4H10Cl2. In fact, I made a mistake here. This is 4. Okay, so this is C2H4. If you just divide it, 4 will come as your answer. So it's C4HCl, and if you multiply this by 2, this would become C4H8 and Cl2. Okay, so इस तरह से क्वेश्चन भी आ सकते हैं. They have not given you the molecular mass, but they are asking about the molecular formula. But they have given you C4H3. You know the original formula is C4H10, right? The original formula had 4 carbons. So let's make it 4 carbons. That would be its molecular formula, because we know that when butane reacts with chlorine, hydrogen gets replaced with chlorine, but carbon remains the same. The molecular formula must have the same carbon atoms still. So if you make carbon atoms 4, rest of them also get multiplied by 2. So hydrogen will become 8 and Cl will become 2, which means that 2 hydrogens are replaced by 2 Cls. Okay, so question number 10 is nitric acid is used to make fertilizers. Okay, we have to basically balance this equation. If I cut the graph. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 4 and 5 and 4 and 6. Right, as you have to do some hit and trial to do that. Nitric acid is used to make the soluble salt potassium nitrate. Name the alkali that reacts with nitric acid to make potassium nitrate. So alkali का नाम लिखना है, तो we have to write potassium का hydroxide होगा. So name the alkali, do not write the formula. He asked to name the alkali. So potassium hydroxide. Describe the experimental procedure used to make colorless solution of potassium nitrate. So remember, he's just asking you to make a solution, not dry crystal. So you just have to mention titration. Okay? So you will write that put the acid, or which is the acid? Nitric acid. The nitric acid in a burette and potassium hydroxide in the conical flask or the titration flask. In the conical flask, do titration with indicator to find endpoint. Then you will repeat titration. Without indicator. Okay. So next is calculate the percentage mass of nitrogen in potassium nitrate. So MR निकालने potassium nitrate का, that would be KNO3 का 39 plus 14 plus 48. It would be 101. Okay, and percentage mass nitrogen की आ जाएगी 14 atom. KNO3 है ना, there's only one nitrogen atom, तो एक nitrogen का mass divided by overall MR multiply by 100 and you will get 13.861. Fertilizers leach into rivers and cause water pollution problems. ठीक है. Name one other pollutant found in river water. Okay, one is fertilizers and the other one is, they can be heavy metal ions, they can be detergents, they can be pesticides. Where there are fertilizers, there are also pesticides. State 3 processes used in purification of river water produce drinking water. He's just asking you to state it. Okay, so you have, first thing you do is filtration. The first thing in purification of water is filtration, and then you use carbon to deodorize. Deodorize मतलब उसकी बुरी smell खत्म करने के लिए. To deodorize, and last is chlorination. Okay, so that's all from this paper. There is some noise in the background, I know, but if I just kept on waiting for noiseless rooms, तो उस चक्कर में ना आप लोग एग्जाम में papers रह जाएंगे. So I thought के I just record it. Hopefully it will be beneficial for you. कोई feedback हो तो do mention in the comments.